Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar, we're very excited that you're here, and we hope you're here for the work planning webinar, preparing your team to create a Linkages 2.0 collaboration. And you'll learn what Linkages 2.0 collaborations look like and how work planning can help launch your effort. So welcome for being here. Where this is recorded, and we will be sharing the recording and the PowerPoint after after today's presentation. And Mia's going to tell you a little bit more about what you need to do to make sure you can follow this webinar and identify yourself the way we'd like to in the in your little square.
Good morning. We just want to let you guys know that we will try to keep you on mute throughout the webinar. We'll be continuously monitoring the chat, so any questions are going to be addressed either through the chat, or the presenter will address them, or we can communicate with you after the webinar. And as Dana said, this presentation, the recording of this presentation, and any documents or tools or resources that we reference today will be shared with everybody after the webinar. Later on in the Zoom, we're going to be doing a breakout groups. So if you can find your picture, your little video square, and hover over the top right corner, there's 3 little dots there. If you can click on there and then rename yourself to your first name and the county you're from. So like Mia, Placer, Dana, Contra Costa, that will help me to know who needs to go into what breakout room. And I'll turn it back over to Dana.
Okay, and I just renamed myself to Dana, CFPIC. And this is really important for you to do this, because when we do the breakouts, Mia's going to need to put you into your breakout room by your county and or who you're representing. So it's important that she have your name and your county on it. So hover over those 3 dots and change your name and your county. I see many people have done that. Perfect. All right, so I'm Dana Fabella, your Linkages project director with CFPIC, and I know many of you. It's so great to see all the faces and the people that I've known through many years, and see all the large attendance that we have here today. So I'm pleased to be back leading this effort, and I could not do it without Leslie Ann Hay, who is our Linkages project consultant. Leslie Ann, if you're there, maybe we can highlight Leslie Ann as well and raise your hand and wave to the crowd.
Good morning.
Leslie Ann has been key and a partner to this work for a long time, and I could not do it without her. And I have to admit, I've been on vacation for a while and back, and she's carried the water on this webinar. And of course, introduction to the team, Roxanne Stevens, formerly from Linkage Coordinator from Santa Clara County. She's project consultant, been working with us, and many of you know her because she's been reaching out to you over the last several months. And of course, Mia Stizzo, who's our Linkages project support, and she's our guru at CFPIC and behind the scene technology, making sure that we don't go too far afoul, which I can often do that if any of you know me in webinars, so I'm sorry about that, but do the best I can. And fortunately, I have Mia behind me to help me. So with that, introduce the team. And so it's exciting. Like I said, who's here today? We have 42 counties that have registered with over 166 participants. That is so exciting. And it's exciting to see all the work of new counties that are working to establish a team, and counties that have been part of Linkages reestablishing or rethinking about their strategies. It's just very exciting. And it's also nice to see that over 60% of the counties had assigned at least one coordinator. Some of you have assigned one for each program, which is what we do recommend, because this is a collaborative program between CalWorks and Child Welfare, and it's really hard for one program to carry it all. So it really needs to have that collaboration. So we're excited to see that we do have many counties that have done that already. And we also have a lot of teams here. We've got most of you have teams of 2 or 4, 2 to 4, but a few of you have some large teams here today. 5 to 11 of you are here. And so we're excited to see that too. And some of you have other partners with you, behavioral health, and some of you, your community support folks. So it's really excited to see that. We also have, we had CWDA and CDSS staff registered, and our CFPIC team, other folks from CFPIC are here as well, and some other county partners. So it's exciting as we relaunched Linkages to see the interest in, and I know, because I've talked to many of you that have been running Linkages for many years, the continued passion for this collaboration. So it's nice to welcome you back. So what are our goals today? We want to help you gain a better understanding how Linkages can look in practice, because it's changed now a little bit as we call it Linkages 2.0. It's just that it expanded. We're still doing our tertiary work. And so we also want today that your teams, that you can arrive at a collective interpretation of your self-assessment tool. For those of you, we're hoping that most of you were able to either attend or listen to the last webinar where we went over the self-assessment tool, either readiness for new counties or renovation. So we're hoping you had a chance to look at that and to do that. And today we're hoping that you'll have a chance to reach a collective interpretation of that. And we want you to leave the meeting today ready to identify your county's goal for Linkages. You may not quite know where you want to go with Linkages at this point, but we're hoping that you'll be ready to start to identify that. And we want to help you learn a little bit more about the work plan template, how to use it, and how to use it with your implementation team. So that's what we hope to accomplish today, and it's a lot to do in a few hours. So our today's agenda really is welcoming you all back, and I think I've already done that. I'm really pleased to see all the familiar faces as well as new faces. We're going to talk about collaboration, the key to Linkages. Linkages, we've had, as you know, a lot of experience between Leslie Ann and myself with Linkages, and many of you. And so we know there are some key things that you really need to pay attention to. We want to talk about our new framework for Linkages, which focuses on prevention. And we have some examples of what we call Linkages in action. And we're hoping that Leslie Ann will be going to the new toolkit, I believe, to maybe share some of this work with you. We'll be talking about the pathway to work planning. Work planning is so important. You can't do it all. You really need to develop a work plan and be able to delegate. And creating that collaborative work plan is really important. And then we're going to talk about what's next? So that's today's agenda. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie Ann Hay, who is really going to, no, actually, I'm still on. I'm sorry. I thought Leslie Ann, I was not trying to give you work already. So let's talk about that first thing, the area that I talked about, which is the collaboration, the key to Linkages. As I said, this is something that we've had a lot of experience with. So we do know that it's really important, what's important around this collaboration. Part of what is so important, and we know this intuitively, don't we? That through coordinated information services and supports, it supports families, and it supports families so that they can attain. I'm going to start at the bottom, because I think that attaining economic self-sufficiency is so important in our new framework, because our new framework really focuses on prevention. And what we know about economic insecurity is really one of the reasons why we're moving to these new frameworks of prevention. So by coordination and coordinating services and supports, it helps our families attain economic self-sufficiency. It strengthens their capacity for child well-being and family stability. Now, this is something that we've seen our CalWorks program really evolve to, with a real focus on family stability and family engagement, which is exciting for those of us in child welfare, because we do know that that's really important, that family engagement, and it reduces the risk for occurrence or reoccurrence of child maltreatment. Those are really important parts about our Linkage collaboration, and why I think it's such an important program. And it's an important program around prevention. It's an important program when you want to focus on disparities in child welfare is because we do know that economic disparities is one of the areas that has more families of color coming into our system. So collaboration on a continuum, and Leslie Ann is going to talk a little bit about this in a moment, but I want you to kind of get the picture of what we're thinking about and what we thought about as we moved, as it's the work group that CDSS put together, really moved the Linkages project in a very I think a new and innovative way. We were working at that end there, those mutual families. That's really where Linkages has been. But we really began to think about it and moved it forward, if you will. So families in need are part of what we wanted to focus on. So all our CalWORKs families are really by identification because they're applying for income support or Medicaid or supportive services. So they're families in need. So they are at risk families. So all those families are part of that continuum. And they're families that may need some parenting support. And we've seen that by some of the supportive services that CalWORKs have put in place. And then we have what we might think of as low risk families, and they're families that are, the CalWORKs families that have been referred. They don't quite meet the child welfare criteria for involvement, but they certainly are families that need services because there may be low risk, but they're families in need of services. So those child welfare referrals also that come in that may not be on CalWORKs, but maybe they should be on CalWORKs. Maybe they need that. So those are those families sort of in between. And then we know the families that we've been working with, the mutual families. Those are those CalWORKs and child welfare families that when we first started this work, it was really around the CalWORKs welfare to work plan and the child welfare work plan that needed to be coordinated. But there's now other sort of case plans that might need coordination. So those mutual families are still part of Linkages and an important part of Linkages, but they're not the only part now as we move to this broader continuum. And of course, benefits of linkage collaboration, easier access to information and services, streamlining case plan expectations, teaming for better support. Those of the child welfare folks that are part of the child welfare core practice model, teaming. It's an important part of the work that we do. Aligning with family-centered prevention-focused practice as we try to move our programs and services up front so that children don't have to be removed and come into child welfare. So for agencies, it's really leveraging resources across programs, creates efficiency in case planning, saves costs. We know that the cost for children in out-of-home care is enormous. The more we can keep children at home safe and support those families, the better off we are. And so for us in Linkages, we really want to move ourselves to thinking about how these two programs fit together and how they're not nor should they be standalone siloed programs. Rather, they should be a continuum, thinking about how we service and support vulnerable families in our community that are in need of support and services. One of the things that a Chapin Hall 2021 brief just recently was put out that talked about children and children below the poverty level I'm trying to think of it's a significant increase in their substantiated child maltreatment cases. So therefore, we really do know that it's important for us to support families, both economically to support them in becoming self-sufficiency and stabilizing their families if we are really going to deal with the issues of children of color coming into our system disproportionately. And so with that, I now get to turn it over to Leslie Ann Hay, who's going to really talk about this new framework. I've kind of set it up in terms of what we've been thinking. So she's going to really outline that framework for you now. Thanks,
Okay.
Leslie Ann.
Thank you so much, Dana, and good morning, everybody. We did want to really ground this this morning in sort of this new focus for linkages and really looking at everything through the lens of prevention. And what we also want to do today is kind of lift up some examples of what linkages might look like, sort of along that continuum that Dana just described. So just as a reminder of sort of the prevention framework that we're applying to our linkages collaborations now, it's our primary, secondary, tertiary kind of view that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But again, thinking about that sort of universal level, that primary level of prevention, this is really where we're designing programs and opportunities and collaborations within linkages where we can target a much broader population, right, of those families who may be in need, not quite yet at a risk level, but we're just providing support and education and information kind of before problems might occur. And then at the secondary level of prevention, we're really targeting families who are in some level of need, right? To really try and alleviate those problems early and prevent further escalation and further penetration, if you will, into the formal system. And then finally, there's even prevention opportunities when families are fully involved in our service systems, right? Where we're able to provide the kinds of interventions and collaborative partnerships and leveraging of resources for children who are already experiencing maltreatment and maybe in unsafe situations. But we want to bring everything we can to bear on that, right? Which is why our partnership with CalWorks is so important, because it's really a whole nother resource within our communities that is also now focused on family stabilization and really strengthening the resiliency of families. So what we did as part of that work group that Dana was talking about earlier is, over the last several months, we kind of pulled together several counties and started thinking through, what does a linkages prevention theory of change really look like, right? And so we were able to really develop that and think through kind of our logic about what's our hypothesis for what we think the impact will be if we move linkages into this more prevention focused arena. And so really, when you think about at the primary level, if CalWorks recipients and the staff at CalWorks are providing the kind of information and services that are kind of focused around protective factors for CalWorks recipients, and that those families receive the kinds of supports and services they need to address those potential barriers. And if we have the kinds of coordination of early intervention services between CalWorks and child welfare, and even to lift up the kinds of ways that CalWorks on its own now is really focused on family stabilization resources and bringing those into vulnerable families' lives, things like family stabilization and homeless case management and kinship navigator and differential response on the child welfare side. And if we have ongoing coordination of services between CalWorks and child welfare services, when we do have 2 open cases, then families really have the opportunity to increase their parenting skills and stabilize their financial situations and really support housing stability for them and build resiliency and ultimately improve child and family well-being, so that families can ultimately provide safer, more stable, nurturing relationships and environments for their children. And the end result, from a prevention lens at least, is fewer CalWorks families being referred to child welfare services, hopefully at that primary level, and at the secondary and tertiary levels, we're hoping to reduce the re-referrals to child welfare services and certainly decrease entries into foster care. And of course, there's all the benefits ongoing, right, of what CalWORKS is focused on too, right? We're still attending to that economic self-sufficiency and the kinds of work participation and other goals that CalWORKS has always had for the families that are involved in their programs. But it really brings that prevention lens together for the two partners so that we're sort of now, building our collaboration off the idea that we can all work toward the reduction of child maltreatment. And so, as Dana alluded to earlier, it was kind of interesting to think about our history around the evolution of linkages over time, right? As we got the work group together and we started to think about relaunching linkages in a more deliberate way throughout the state with this prevention lens in place. And really, up until now in the past, the linkages practice that has been operating in, gosh, lots and lots of counties, at least 35 counties over the years have been involved in linkages in some way, but typically that practice was almost exclusively tertiary in nature, right? It was typically bringing together those mutual clients. And the coordination was focused on coordinating those case plans and really which is still a great cornerstone of linkages. There were also some secondary kinds of protocols that were beginning to emerge with that kind of early intervention element of bringing together the coordination at the ER and CalWORKS level, but it was still about sort of either an open referral or a soon to be open case on the CalWORKS on the child welfare side, along with an open case on the CalWORKS side. But now and into the future, we've seen so many changes and development on the CalWORKS side and on the child welfare side, right? We've got the evolution of the core practice model on the child welfare side. On the CalWORKS side, we have the evolution of CalWORKS 2.0 with much more emphasis on case management and building resiliency and supports for families. So we're really kind of even more aligned today than we have been in the past in terms of those aims. And so now we want to be building on that and really introducing some primary strategies for CalWORKS families. We want to be more deliberately incorporating some of those new CalWORKS programs like family stabilization and intensive supportive services and the kinds of supports and home visiting services that CalWORKS has begun to develop over the last few years. And we also want to emphasize aftercare, right? Really thinking about not only what happens while we're working with families simultaneously, but what happens after that case closes, right? And those families go back to the community. Do we have the kinds of supports in place both in their natural systems and within the community that are really going to carry those vulnerable families forward in a way that, again, focuses on prevention going forward. And the other big opportunity we have coming up for linkages is some new legislation that I think we'll be probably seeing an ACL around in the next few months. But you guys, some of you that have been involved in linkages before, remember AB 429, which was the opportunity for when a case is open to CalWORKS, when a child is or the children are removed from that home and placed in foster care, we could still continue to provide services to that birth parent even while their child was placed in foster care. Well, now there's been some new legislation that expands that strategy even further so that not only are services available to those birth parents, but even the cash assistance can continue under certain circumstances for a period of time as well. So that's going to be a game changer, I think, when we get those regulations out and get more guidance about the implementation of that. So that's a great opportunity for kind of retooling some of you that may already be wanting to think about your FR and CalWORKS kinds of collaborations and how those can evolve and be renovated going forward. So I want to kind of put this prevention framework in context here a little bit and think about how does this prevention framework apply to the kinds of linkages strategies that you all are going to want to develop and continue to implement in your counties. And when we're talking about primary prevention, that's really kind of a fledgling area of innovation, right? We have a few ideas, one of which is trying to provide this family support information and resource for CalWORKs families. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a moment. And then, of course, secondary is really thinking about that early intervention, really at the point of the referral, even before you might open it for a case on the child welfare side. How can we coordinate resources? How can we get families connected to the benefits of CalWORKs, whether we open that case or not on the child welfare side? Another opportunity is really, focusing on family stabilization, home visiting, intensive services and supports, the kinds of programming that CalWORKs is already beginning to build in to their work with families, because those really are prevention strategies. And of course, there's many counties that are still doing differential response. So they have different pathways for those low risk clients who may not rise to the level of opening a child welfare case, but they're referred to a community partner for the kinds of resources that they can acquire there. And again, there's opportunities for connection with CalWORKs for some families that are eligible, even while that's going on also. And then finally, we have our kind of traditional, right, which many of you are familiar with, our tertiary strategies for linkages, which really have to do with, you've got open cases on both sides. You may have a client in voluntary or non-voluntary or court-involved FM on the family maintenance on the child welfare side, and they also have an open welfare to work case on the CalWORKs side. Same for the situation where those children may need to be removed for safety reasons, and you have an FR case on the CalWORKs side, and there was eligibility at the time of that removal. So as I mentioned earlier, there's still some opportunities for those services and supports, and soon to be even cash assistance that will continue to support that birth family toward reunification. So with that as kind of the quick summary of what do we mean by a linkages strategy, you can see that there's many, what I like to call flavors of linkages, right? This is not a one size fits all kind of a program. And that's sort of the beauty of it, because you get to use a lot of innovation and you really get to customize it to your county location. And I just want to go through each one of these in a little more detail so that you can sort of understand the concept behind each of these types of linkages strategies. And then I want to show you an example too of how this has been put into action in one or more counties. So let's take a look at the primary level of supporting vulnerable families and with linkages. When we were talking about, sort of this example of, it's really about wrapping supports and resources information around this sort of targeted opportunity we have where CalWORKs families are known. They have folks that are working with them already at CalWORKs. And so it's a great opportunity to be asking about their family support needs, right? And their prevention needs, their protective factor development, their resiliency. And CalWORKs is doing a great job of introducing some really engaging assessment tools and other things that help engage families at this level about not only do they have economic support needs, obviously, because they came to CalWORKs, but they also might have some need for family support and stabilization as well, right? It's tough to be out there, perhaps as a single parent trying to piece together, 2 or 3 part-time jobs, you've got children in the home, you're trying to manage daycare, you're trying to manage their schooling as well. That's a lot of pressure on a family. And so that's a real opportunity for prevention and getting the kinds of information and resources to those families that are needed. We're also thinking, even other vulnerable families that you may encounter early on through differential response or you path one kinds of things, other ways that families become known to us. You guys are partnering in your community in all kinds of ways, especially with your FFPSA work on the child welfare and community side. So there may be even more opportunities for these kinds of primary approaches we're talking about. Let me give you one example of something that came out of the work group over the last year, which is this idea of having a really accessible brochure, if you will, an easy to access set of information that's really focused on the Strengthening Families framework, sort of our 5 protective factors that we know build strong families. And so this is in the works right now and kind of getting its final editing and refinement. But this is really a great brochure that just gives some easy, quick language to, this is something that could be provided to families in the eligibility offices on the CalWORK side, or even in the Welfare to Work offices, to really help remind families about these factors. And not only that, but some really easy language about how do I build parental resiliency, and what are some tips that I can easily take away and apply to my world. And so for all 5 of those protective factors, they have this little half page here to be able to give those quick advice and quick education about the 5 protective factors. And the thing we're building into it, and the design isn't quite complete yet, but the idea is that you would be able to customize this brochure at the county level and add in your own local resources that are related to these various protective factors. So if you have a community-based organization in your community that helps support families, maybe a family resource center or something like that, you could put the name and the phone number and contact information about that resource right into this brochure and be able to customize that for your local need. So that's just one idea of something that's in the works right now around the primary prevention level. And I would encourage you, if you guys are thinking about pursuing linkages at that level, as you're thinking about how might linkages evolve and move ahead in our location, pop your idea into the chat and we'll save that chat and share that all back with you. It's great to learn from each other, but if there's another way you guys are thinking about using this, or having another strategy that really targets those vulnerable families at the earliest stages, do share it with us. And I want to move on to the secondary level here. And now we're kind of moving along that continuum, if you will, that Dana showed us. And this is really that point of engagement, if you will, or that point of crisis, right? It's another opportunity for us to blend our resources between child welfare services and CalWORKs. And so, again, the question becomes, right, what's our opportunity when a family becomes known to emergency response on the child welfare side? How can we check on their CalWORK status easily and know that this might be a family who's already involved in CalWORKs, or if they're not, perhaps they should be, right? Because they have not yet reached out to that resource, but maybe through our partnership, we can quickly connect them to those services and supports. And so again, the questions are always, is there a need for economic self-sufficiency, and is there a need for family support services, both prevention opportunities? And I wanted to show you one example from Los Angeles County, and I know other counties have also picked up on this idea, which is a secondary prevention strategy where, when a family comes to the attention of child welfare services in LA, that worker goes out and makes contact with that family, they have just a few simple questions kind of in their back pocket, if they will, to help them determine, is this a family that can benefit from the assistance that's available through CalWORKs? And so they use that screening tool to quickly assess that, along with the other kinds of things they're assessing anyway. And then they're able to quickly connect that family, if they are eligible and are not yet on CalWORK services, to those resources, and kind of expedite that eligibility process, if you will, through their partnership with their the CalWORK side. And they also have, in fact, a co-located knowledgeable individual about CalWORKs at each of the offices in Los Angeles to help facilitate that kind of collaborative connection. And so there's other counties as well. I know San Francisco also includes a sort of a CalWORKs flyer in their ER packets for their workers on the child welfare side, and that ER worker can talk with families about the programs and supports that are available through CalWORKs during that first initial meeting with families, or even in that first child and family teaming opportunity. So, you know, there's all kinds of variations on that kind of theme. And so again, the other kinds of early intervention examples that I just wanted to mention are, you know, a lot of times there's screening also that's happening on the CalWORKs side, because, you know, CalWORKs really is a child abuse prevention program, right? So there's all kinds of assessment tools now that CalWORKs has applied integrated into their eligibility processes, so that they can identify families who may be in need of family stabilization services, homeless assistance, home visiting, some of these kinds of resources and supports that really make the difference for families who are feeling stressed or vulnerable, but they just need that extra support to prevent them from, you know, sort of crossing over and becoming a referral to the child welfare department. Another approach is to really link that path one differential response process on the child welfare side to CalWORKs resources and benefits. And again, not only just making sure that family is enrolled and getting cash assistance, but are they taking advantage of all the things that CalWORKs now offers, right? That could really help stabilize that family. And again, another early opportunity for intervention is around connecting sanctioned families on the CalWORKs side to the kinds of family support services that they might need, that is actually, you know, sort of contributing to their sanction status in the first place. So that's another way that that early intervention can really happen through CalWORKs and child welfare collaboration. And then finally, tertiary is you know, a set of strategies that you all who've been around linkages for a while are probably most familiar with. And I want to encourage you too, if there are other secondary strategies that you guys are thinking of, or other than the ones I just mentioned, go ahead and pop them in the chat again. And we love to learn from each other. But in terms of tertiary, this is really when we have mutual clients, right? We've got an open case on the CalWORKs side, we've got an open case on the child welfare side. And it's that point of knowing the fact that you have a mutual case that's sort of half the battle, right? Of this tertiary level of linkages. Once you know that, then it's really about creating the infrastructure within your team-based environments to be able to continue to coordinate services over the lifespan of those simultaneously open cases, right? And we know that CalWORKs is kind of episodic sometimes, right? Folks can go in and out of CalWORKs, and we know kind of the trajectory of the child welfare case life cycle too. So really being able to coordinate over that period of time for the duration is a great opportunity to be able to support that family move toward reunification, move toward other permanency options, as well as moving toward self-sufficiency. And so again, I'm just going to summarize, these are mostly family maintenance CalWorks collaborations or family reunification CalWorks collaborations. And so I wanted to just kind of review with all of you the sort of phases of all of these strategies. What you need to be thinking about is, first of all, how are we going to identify our clients, right? You can use the ER point of entry, right? Do we have a client in common, right? If you've missed it early on at that front end, you can also be asking about your existing caseloads in family maintenance and family reunification. Do we have a mutual client in our current existing cases, right? This is where utilizing things like match lists is so important, right? Unfortunately, we still know that child welfare and CalWorks operate off different case management systems. We don't quite yet have a fully integrated system. So there's great strategies that counties have come up with in order to do some merging and finding out through common identifiers whether or not we have common cases within your caseload, and then you can notify the workers that you've just been assigned a case that has an open CalWorks case at the same time. This is an opportunity for collaboration, right? It's also an opportunity to initiate intake for families potentially eligible for CalWorks, right? Perhaps a family has lost their job at some course of your time caring for that case or managing that case on the child welfare side. That's an opportunity to make sure, is this family connected to the kinds of resources they need? And then that's when you link those open cases and you proceed with ongoing coordination, right? And that's where you're really working together toward maintaining child safety, family stabilization and well-being, economic self-sufficiency, and it's an opportunity to streamline services, right? Without linkages, you've got this poor family trying to juggle 2 different case plans, right? Over a series of months, maybe trying to make it to court dates, trying to, do their work participation activities, trying to, shore up their job skills, all at the same time where they're trying to learn new parenting skills to keep their children safe. That is a heavy, heavy load. So if we can coordinate with linkages, right, that's an opportunity to maximize that family's goals, right? You can have child welfare activities count towards your welfare to work plan requirements, right? You can apply homeless services from CalWorks to help stabilize that family's that's at risk of being homeless or having to enter a shelter on a long-term basis. You can provide other resources from CalWorks around family stabilization and home visiting. And again, it's all in service of supporting the child in context of their family to move toward that ultimate stabilization, and the opportunity for constant communication over the life of the case is really critical. So as circumstances change for that family, you're making sure that team of case managers is really helping support their needs. And then finally, this transition and aftercare period is also an opportunity where collaboration is really critical, right? To make sure that you're maintaining that CalWorks support. If the child welfare case goes ahead and closes, maybe it's a success that family's reunified, right? It's transitioning away from child welfare services, but they still have eligibility for CalWorks. So we want to continue many of those supportive services that come from that side. Same if the reverse happens, right? You want to be able to make sure that there's smooth transitions and connections to the kinds of ongoing supports that'll come from child welfare services if CalWorks closes first. And then of course, if you're closing out all together, again, it's that smooth transition to the community and natural supports that will surround that family. So with that, kind of as an overview, let me check in quickly with Roxanne. Are there any questions or anything that have come up in the chat that?
Yeah, a few things, a couple
Okay.
things. So first of all, there was a suggestion about maybe some possible cross-training with CalWorks folks about SOP and CPM, SOP, which is safety organized practice, and CPM, which is a core practice model, which we know that that's child welfare kind of stuff. But so that there was that suggestion. And
Sure.
then also there was a question about possible interfaces between systems such as CWS and CARES that might help with some case identification. And I don't know if there is any state people on that might be willing to answer that question, if there's any discussion at the state level. I'm sure there's discussion, but are there any updates on that?
Yeah.
And then finally, there was just an additional from Lisa from Riverside County about a resource for family voluntary family maintenance cases. Just the idea of using some behavioral health resources as a preventative measure. And I believe that that's something that they offer in their county.
Sure. No, that's
came up in the chat so far.
That's a great idea. I appreciate that from Riverside. That's a perfect example of, how this collaboration can really grow, right? With the kinds of prevention resource partners that you have at the table. But let me take the other question about joint training. I mean, definitely that's a wonderful opportunity as both the programs have been evolving over the last couple of years. I think it's fantastic to see if you can weave in just enough information, right, about some of those strategies, whether it's safety, organized practice, and child and family teaming on the child welfare side, or maybe it's about family stabilization and home visiting on the CalWorks side. But one of the things we really encourage when you begin to launch your Linkages program is to do joint training, right? Don't train all your CalWorks folks over here in a corner and then train all your child welfare people, separately, and then hopefully they'll come together and collaborate. Have joint trainings where you can do that kind of introduction of each other's, environment, not to turn child welfare workers into CalWorks case managers or vice versa, but just to raise enough familiarity with one another so that you're really promoting the partnership and you're really understanding what's available and what the sort of approach is on both sides. That really helps support the partnership. And then I know that we might have Julie Clemens here from the data side, who has been working on some interesting support kinds of things around CARES and what are the opportunities for collaboration. Dana, I know you've got a work group going around data as well. Do you want to maybe do a little commercial on that?
Yeah, and I see Julie Clemens' comment in the chat section too that asks if has there been discussion of creating an interface in the future CWS care system. And I did attend and talk to a small group around that whole issue, Julie, and I did get a response from Tomas Dolcini, I think is his name, with who represents, I think, the county's interest in that system. And he said that it is on their list. They have a list of priorities and it is a list, but he could not tell me when that might be addressed. But I think that, as we know from our experience with linkages, that it's a major, it's been a major barrier in terms of client identification for mutual families when that they're not easily identified on the system. So that would be a real add if we could get that done. So that has been brought to the attention of that project, and I'll try to stay on top of that.
Yeah,
Right.
I just wanted to add, hi, this is Julie, and I am an LA County consultant who's been on the Child Welfare Digital Services team working on the Future Cares build. I also had the privilege of working with all of you in 2007, rolling out Linkages 1.0 in LA County with David Yada. And really the implementation, the part that really worked in 1.0 was having that co-located staff person in the office with their database to provide the child welfare worker with the family's information. I'm hoping in the future, that the child welfare screener or investigator would have some type of interface where they could automatically get that information from the get-go. Because the sooner we can get that information, the sooner we can collaborate, right?
That's great,
Absolutely.
Julie. And I'm so glad to hear that you're on that team, because it's one of the areas that we've been trying to address for actually a decade. So we'll keep on that. And we do, as soon as they're ready to move on that a little bit more on that project, we'll pull you in, Julie, because
Yeah.
you have a lot of knowledge on that. But thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
excellent. Thanks, Julie, and thanks, Roxanne. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mia. And what we've got to, rather than me talking about a really great tertiary collaboration with Linkages, we have a wonderful video that Orange County has recently put together. It's just 2 minutes long. And before you start it, I just want to acknowledge the team from Orange County, that it was a very collaborative effort, I understand, just in developing the video itself. And it has no speaking parts in it. It's just a little bit of music in the background, and everything is visually shown on the screen. So you just read these wonderful little animated characters describe how Linkages works in Orange County. So I'm going to thank the team from Orange County, and we're going to show the video here for just a couple of minutes, okay? Okay, wonderful. So thank you again so much to Orange County. And we will be posting that particular video on the Linkages Toolkit on the website. So if you want to look at it again, or take a closer look, or go to their website for more information, you'll be able to do that following the webinar today. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen again here for a moment, and just give us a chance to answer any questions or open it up for conversation a little bit. Anybody have any thoughts or stimulate any ideas about where you want to either develop your Linkages program, or I see we've got lots of kudos to Orange for such a creative and
Yes,
fun
yes.
way of doing that. But somebody out there?
And before we go to that, Mia wanted to remind folks around changing their name because she won't be able to put them in their county group.
Oh,
if
yes.
they don't have their county name on it. Mia, you want to do the reminder and tell people how to do that to change their names? Or
Yes, so
rename themselves?
find your picture or your video square, and then if you hover over it in the top right corner, there'll be 3 little dots. And from there, you can hit that and then go to rename and rename yourself to just your first name and your county. And if you can't figure out how to do that or it's not working for you, chat me and just tell me what county you're from and I can do it for you.
Yeah, it's important. Otherwise, we won't know where to put you when we do the breakout.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Any-
Lucian, there was
Yeah.
one question about just kind of like doing like a quick little review of the protective factors. I think it was somebody from the CalWorks side. And so they were
Yes.
curious about what a little bit more information about protective factors.
Yes, I wish I had my other slide. I'm happy to, I can go
can-
back. We are going to send out the slides here in the slideshow. I know some of you were saying you can't see all the slide because of the panel. Remember that you can drag your panel of little tiles of our pictures anywhere on the screen and get them out of the way if you need to. But basically, the protective factors are like, parental resiliency, knowledge and information about parenting. I don't have memorized off the top of my head, but we will send you these slides from the webinar today. And so you'll have those listed there and can utilize that on your own. So, and again,
Yeah.
that is a framework that, oh, thank you. Examples, Lolita's helping out here. Client's natural support system, knowledge of child development. Thank you so much. Yes.
And Leslie, I think that if, like bringing the CalWorks side of it, economic stability is
Absolutely.
also, and so I think that's like basically the foundation of linkages is that how they both, the protective factors come from both the child welfare system point of view, as well as the CalWorks point of view.
That's right. And if you guys Google strengthening families framework, you will find, I think the Center for the Study of Social Policy has great resources about the protective factors for families and the strengthening families framework, which is so applicable, right, to both sides. And I know a lot of child welfare departments these days, with the focus on the Family First Prevention Services Act work, are using that framework, right, to sort of base a lot of their prevention efforts around. So, so we can certainly add those resources to our toolkit as well.
Yes, definitely, because they're really based on the risk factors, what they see as the 5 risk factors, and the protective factors are things that protect against those risks.
Yes, exactly.
We'll
And
send
during
that.
the break, I will go ahead and put that link into the chat,
That
okay?
sounds great.
So you guys can go and look more at the protective factors, okay? Anything else? Any other questions about anything we've gone over so far? Anything like that? Comments, other innovative ideas, light bulbs that have gone on for anybody? Okay, well, with that, we're going to have time for questions later on in the presentation as well. But I think that, so there is one question. Video mentioned that child welfare pending or CalWorks pending are eligible to linkages. How is the support available prior to being able to create a welfare to work plan? So it's more about making sure that we're connecting those families who are eligible as quickly as possible to those resources in CalWORKs, right? And so a lot of times I think that can get overlooked, right? In terms of knowing that you might have a family that has not reached out, either perhaps all they're acquiring from CalWORKs is cash assistance, or, you know, they could volunteer into the welfare to work program. You know, all those kinds of nuances are part of the collaboration that we want to make more visible when we have a partnership established between CalWORKs and Child Welfare Services. So, so you're right. There is enrollment, if you will, in welfare to work at some level that needs to occur for those services to be available. But when you have a strong aligned partnership and you have some of those infrastructure pieces that we were talking about earlier, that can happen very quickly, right? And so that's another way to sort of leverage your linkages partnerships. Okay. And wonderful, Felix from Riverside has put the 5 protective factors in the chat. Thank you so much, Felix. Parental resilience, social connections, knowledge of parenting and child development, concrete support in times of need, and social and emotional competence of children, right? So these are child focused kind and parenting focused kinds of protective factors. But I do want to, you know, add the umbrella over this that Dana alluded to, which is the economic stability of that family in our collective opinion is definitely another protective factor,
Well,
if you will, right? And having a job, right? And having a way to support your family. So it's all kind of falls under that, you know, resiliency kind of category.
well, it is one of the protective factors, concrete supports in times of need. I mean, that
Yeah,
is protective.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we're all thinking still about, you know, the ongoing sustainability of that kind of ability to meet one's own needs too. So again, kind of the beauty of the partnership. But thank you to Felix for getting us on the right page here with that. All right, so I think what we'll do at this point, you guys, we've been listening for a long time, and I would love to be able to give you guys a little bit of a break, a little bit of self-care. We're going to take about 10 minutes, and we've got a little countdown clock here. So if we could have you return just at about 10:17 or so, just, you know, refill your coffee cup, take a little stretch break, and we will come back together in 10 minutes.
Okay, I think we're back again.
Okay, everybody back from getting a little break in. And we do want to kind of switch gears here a little bit and really move into our topic of the day, which is, of course, developing our work plan. And I did want to mention too that Roxanne went ahead and loaded into the chat the website that I was mentioning earlier from the Center for the Study of Social Policy, where they have lots of great resource material around the Strengthening Families framework. So feel free to grab that link and save it and look through that later. So what I wanted to do now is really talk a little bit. Many of you I know attended or saw reviewed the recording of the first webinar that we did a month or so ago around conducting your self-assessment. And now we really want to kind of move forward and show you how that information and the process that you'll engage in with your teams around conducting that assessment really leads you into developing a work plan for linkages. You know, as I mentioned earlier, linkages is unique in that it's not sort of a one size fits all turnkey program. It's really something that I like to say there's some assembly required, right? It's a way for you to come together in your environment with your partnerships between CalWORKs and Child Welfare Services, and really think about what's going to make sense for your location and your communities and the kinds of families that you see who are in need of this kind of prevention focus going forward, and can really benefit from that collaborative partnership. So because of that, we want to give you some tools to be able to develop a kind of a robust work plan around how are we going to get from where we are now to having a fully implemented linkages program, whether you're wanting to kind of take your existing linkages program and do some adjusting to it and modifying it to kind of fit this new 2.0 environment, or whether you're brand new to linkages and have not put this kind of a collaborative partnership on the ground before. We've got tools for you to support either one of those situations. So as you recall, we went through our self-assessment process before, and that's really the beginning of this. It's really a way to take stock. It's a questionnaire that you can utilize with your team to be able to really take stock of where you are right now with your linkages effort, right? You can examine your current reality with that, with the series of questions. It's a way to kind of rank yourselves on a scale of 1 to 5 in various dimensions of either readiness to launch linkages for the first time, or where you might want to go with renovating an existing linkages program in the future. And so once you kind of inquire of yourselves and get that collective kind of 360 view of how things are now, you can interpret those results and really begin to identify, you know, where do we want to go from here in terms of what are the critical priorities of program development that we want to address based on where we are now, where we think we'd like to go, and who we'd like to serve with our linkages program, and really define what success looks like for yourselves. And then be able to just map out and sort of delegate that work so that you've got folks who are helping design the program or tweak the design of your operations, of your linkages strategy. And you've got other folks that are helping develop some training curriculum to help your staff understand what linkages is all about in your location. And maybe you've got other staff that are taking a look at how we want to evaluate whether your linkages program is working as intended. So it's the work plan that's going to help you sort of condense all of that information, and as good program planners, you can help oversee that and move that forward. So, you know, we kind of walked through in our previous webinars and wanted to reiterate here today, what are some of the main steps in really preparing for work planning? And one, many of you, it looks like, have already tackled, and others of you are still thinking through, and that's to identify your linkages coordinators, right? Because this is a collaborative partnership between two different divisions, or in some cases, entire departments. It's really important to have those linchpin positions that Dana talked about earlier that are really going to help oversee your linkages effort and really be sort of not only the point of contact for you internally to help promote that collaborative and coordinated environment, but it's also a point of contact for us at the central support resource here of CFPIC and CDSS as well, to really support you as counties in moving your linkages program forward. It really helps us to be able to have a point of contact that we can keep in touch with, make sure you know about all the upcoming shared learning opportunities that are coming up, kind of have a sense of what you guys are working on so we can partner you with other counties that are working on similar kinds of linkages strategies and all of that. The other thing you want to do kind of under the leadership of your linkages coordinators is to establish your at least at this stage, your core implementation team. In other words, these are the folks that you're going to gather around the table with to help not only assess where you are now, but to develop your work plan as well. It's good to have more than one perspective. It's good to have both CalWORKS and Child Welfare's points of view as you go to design and plan and implement your program. The next step is to really use that group of folks to conduct your self-assessment itself, right? Whether you're just starting out and want to use the readiness assessment tool to evaluate, to look that over and see where you are and where you want to start, or whether you want to use the renovation tool, which has a slightly different set of questions for those that have already been doing linkages for a period of time. And then finally, here today, we're hoping that many of you will have gotten through that step and maybe be able to be in a position to interpret the results of your self-assessment tool. You know, what does this mean for us? Where are our strengths? Where are our areas of development that we want to further build up? Where are the kinds of changes we want to make to our linkages program to make it better for families and more effective for staff? And that's going to really lead you into, so what are the elements of our work plan that we want to put together? So given all that, we thought it would be nice to have some sort of team time, if you will. And, you know, we wanted to just give you some discussion time to kind of, you know, finish your homework, if you will, right? For those of you that went to the last webinar, we sort of ended that with some expectations about those readiness steps that we were hoping you'd have time in the in-between time to begin to complete those, but we know how that goes, and things may have interrupted you. So this is kind of a chance to have some self-directed breakouts by county. And so whoever's here from your county, Mia's been kind enough to put you in a room, in a breakout room together in a moment. And we're going to provide you some discussion prompts in a second here that will be with you in that breakout room, so that, you know, you can really just use that time to work through those questions. And we want you to, if you could too, just identify a spokesperson from your group, because we're going to have you answer a poll when you return from your 20-minute breakout, and just give us a sense of where you landed and how far you got with your discussions. And so let me go into those questions for a moment, and Mia has already put them in the chat as well. But I'm going to start at the bottom here and just, you know, for those of you that maybe have completed your self-assessment, for those of you that have gotten a consensus around, you know, where you've ranked yourself on all of those questions and areas of examination of where we are in our linkages program, you know, are you ready to interpret that? Where does that take us from here? What kind of a goal do we want to set for ourselves for linkages going forward? And just begin to think about any of those ideas we talked about earlier that sparked your interest about the direction you want to take your linkages program. You can take some time in your group to actually do that conversation if you'd like to, right? If you're not quite there yet and you haven't quite completed your assessment tool yet, what will it take to move it to completion, right? If you want to use this time to begin to talk about it a little more, figure out when you might be meeting later to do that, maybe you have some idea of it, but you haven't had a chance to share ideas about how you all come to consensus around it, use that time. Many of you may have brought your completed tool with you. If you did, that's great. If you haven't yet started a tool, I'm going to have Mia also add to the chat right now the two tools are going to be uploaded into the chat, so you can go ahead and download those from the chat. And the renovation tool is in there and the readiness tool is in there. So you just click on those if you would like to download, take a look at those tools as part of your time together, if that fits for where your county is. If those things are not your priority right now, and you want to talk more about how to establish your team and who else needs to be at the table, you can talk about that during your county time. As well as if you maybe haven't identified linkages coordinators yet, right? How will we make that happen? You know, who do we want to reach out to? What permissions do we need to get to sort of assign that role to folks? And so with that sort of flexibility around how to use your time to fit best for wherever you are, we're going to send people into groups. There are a few of you that have come to the webinar solo from your county. And for those of you, we've put you together in a small group with others who are also solo from their counties. And so you can use the time even more flexibly to exchange ideas, to think about ways of sharing approaches that you might find useful amongst yourselves. So feel free to use that time however is most meaningful to you as a group, and get to know some of your peers with that. So Mia, if you're all ready with the groups and ready to launch our breakouts, I think Mia's just gonna push a button and you hit join and you'll be in your respective room, and then we'll have you come back automatically in 20 minutes. So we'll see you a little bit later.
Leslie, and you can ignore, I think you got invited to a room. Lupe Valdez, where should I send you? What county are you with?
Sorry, I just logged in because I was
Okay.
using my phone, but Santa Barbara County.
Let's see. Okay. Oh, you're muted, Leslie Ann.
Am I supposed to be in a room with
No,
some
you're
people?
not. I don't know why it did that. You
No,
can-
it's okay. I just didn't know if I was waiting for
Where did we?
the singles or something.
where did-
Did you ignore yours, Roxanne and Dana?
I
'Cause
did. Do you?
I put
yeah,
you guys
let's
in
see.
a stateroom with Barry and Diana.
Yeah, why don't you, would you give me that room again? I'll go back to it.
I don't think
Good.
see, that's
Just
the-
go to breakout rooms, Dana, and
Okay,
you can
got it.
select it. It
Okay.
should,
Yeah, I'll
you
go
might
in.
have to scroll a bit.
Yeah, I'll find it. Yeah, there it is. State and other. I'll join it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank you,
I was just
Dana.
there and it was Diana and me, and Diana wants to observe a county. So,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
so you-
So you're at, I was gonna go and talk with you and all. So we've got some
Okay,
folks.
looks like now there's some,
Yeah.
Unassigned folks, yeah.
Hey Mia, it's Diana. Could you send me to a county that where they're medium to large and they're new to
Yeah.
newer to this? I'd like to listen in on like maybe some of their challenges or what they're.
sure, let's
Okay, cool.
find Diana.
How about San Mateo? Or,
I defer to you on who
Well, that's
where people
Yeah,
are.
Maybe Riverside is kind of reinventing themselves, so that might be a good place.
Oh, Riverside. Yeah, let's do
I'll be
Riverside.
Okay, and Leanne, did you need to go somewhere?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. I think I missed I think I was put in the singles. I don't know if you have San Luis County as one or not.
Yeah, there was nobody else from your county. There was just you.
Mia, you sent that
Great.
invitation
Can
to me and not Diana. Diana, you can go to the breakout rooms on the bottom and then find Riverside.
she
Leanne,
can't,
do you know how to get back to the singles room or no?
No. Oh, join breakout. I think I do. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So I was put in a room, but I was the only one there, so I came back.
Okay,
Teresa, we don't want you in there by yourself.
okay, let me send you to the single county room. I
Thank
think you maybe had some others that were on earlier and they
We
must
did.
off. Okay.
Thank you for being flexible, Teresa.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I think we've got most everybody back. I know it's always an abrupt departure, isn't it, from mid-sentence in, in your breakouts?
I know.
But I hope you guys will continue your conversations when you return back home. And I apologize if some folks didn't quite get in the right place, just from naming reasons or whatever. But we can certainly continue your dialogues back home. And I do want to give Mia an opportunity to just kind of check in with folks. And we were going to just launch a quick poll here to see where people feel like they are, to just kind of gauge. This is kind of a check all that apply kind of poll. And you can just click on whatever answers fit for you, and we'll get our calculation going here of, you know, we either have our linkages coordinators in place, or we have our implementation team in place. We've conducted our self-assessment. We've even begun to interpret or have interpreted our self-assessment, and we're ready to start developing our work plan. One of the things I noticed in the couple of groups I popped in and out of is, you know, there's a lot of change on everybody's staff right now, right? And so a lot of it is kind of trying to get organized around who's who within your counterpart program, and introducing yourselves to each other, and kind of understanding, you know, who's either been involved in linkages in the past, or maybe hasn't been, but now you're getting the baton as a new staff person and trying to learn the ropes. So I think if I were to do this poll over again, I might add a value called I'm getting up to speed on linkages right now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's great. You know, you have lots of folks, even peers, you know, that you can tap into, and certainly us, right, to help answer some of those questions. But look at this. We've got a whole bunch of
82. We got 82 responses. I was expecting one response per breakout.
Yeah,
so
that's
just so
okay.
you know. Okay.
I think everybody was running around in different breakouts. So I think it's fine that we have probably multiple responses from one county here, but it still gives us a nice sort of distribution of percentages here. We got lots of, almost 80% are saying that their linkages coordinator has been named and is in place.
And let me pause for a moment to that end. If that is so, I would really like you to send to myself and Mia Stisso the name of the coordinator and their position and what program they're in. That would be very helpful, because we are developing a coordinators directory that we'll share with everybody when we put it together, but that'll be our point of contact in the future. So if that is true, because I don't have, I've received some emails from some of you who have said this is our coordinator, but we're compiling that directory now. So please send that to myself or Mia, and I'll put our, you know, again, and I'll put myself.
Yeah, pop your email in the chat, Dana,
Yeah.
and Mia's too. That would be fantastic. And I think the other high score getter here is that we've conducted our self-assessment. So that's fantastic too, that you guys are beginning to answer those questions together, and hopefully building a consensus around that. And I think everyone's still working on, you know, putting your implementation team together, maybe stepping back and interpreting those results of your assessment tool, and getting ready to start developing our work plan. There's still, you know, almost 40% of you that feel like you're ready to proceed with that. So that's what we're going to talk about next. And one thing I wanted to mention too, just as a strategy for getting folks to the table, you know, if I know there's a lot of efforts going on right now. Everybody's busy with lots of initiatives. There's always new things being implemented on both sides. But, you know, one of the things to really piggyback on and leverage right now, I think, is the fact that child welfare services have a lot of their focus and attention right now at the program level is on developing their comprehensive prevention plans under the Family First Prevention and Services Act implementation that's happening this year for child welfare departments and their prevention partners. And for those of you in CalWORKS that may not be familiar with that, that's a federal piece of legislation that was passed a couple of years ago and is now getting implemented across the country, California included, where there's actually a new source of federal funding that's become available that's not tied to a child being in out-of-home care, that allows for services and supports under certain evidence-based practice models to be provided to vulnerable families to prevent placement in out-of-home care and to prevent further penetration into the system. And so that's a game changer, right, in the child welfare world. And if you are not already, as CalWORKS, at the prevention planning table with child welfare services, you should be, right? Because, and sometimes it's just a matter of thinking about our public systems that are all part of that prevention network for families, right? And so that's a great point of intersection for you to begin the conversation, to get leadership attention on linkages, to really get to know each other and what CalWORKS has to offer for vulnerable families and vice versa. So if you're having trouble kind of getting connected on the operational level, that might be a great place to start, right? At that more macro level. Dana, did you want to add anything about that as well?
No, I thanks for, I think, sort of lifting that up, because that's really important. That is one of the areas that we know that child welfare is really focused on, is that, prevention planning. And and if a county is overlooking their CalWORKS program, I think they're making a huge mistake, because that is where a lot of vulnerable families are coming to, and it's a good place to, enhance prevention in those with those CalWORKS families.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go through kind of our last segment of our webinar this morning. And that's really about, well, let me pause for a second. I noticed that there's like 14 chats in there. Roxanne, are there any other questions? That people have
most of
raised?
the chats are just about people putting their contact information for the linkages coordinators.
Okay.
So no questions about the content. I'll just keep monitoring it. And Dana did let everybody know that we will be copying the chat, so we'll get that information. But also, if you have more information like phone numbers and address, that might be helpful too, in an email to Dana or to Mia.
Great. Thank you, Roxanne.
And Gloria asked if we have a matrix to fill in the county team information. And Gloria, we'll recreate that matrix that we used to have in the past in terms of the teams. So once we start getting the names of the coordinators, we'll create an alpha with county and the different coordinators, so that you'll be able to touch base with one another. And so I'll get that out as soon as I can sort of fill it in.
Great. Thank you. Good idea. All right, so let's move on then to introduce you to what's involved in developing your linkages work plan, okay? And again, as I said earlier, this is really a way to kind of, set your priorities, take what you've learned from your assessment process, and really move ahead with being able to document how are we going to get from where we are now to where we want to be toward full implementation. And again, I know many of you are all familiar with work planning for different initiatives or efforts, but it's really kind of it's those promises of what we intend to accomplish over a particular period of time for a particular effort. And I know a lot of times people just want to kind of jump into just doing the work and doing the collaboration itself. But it really does help you to kind of set your goals. If nothing else, it helps you match the size and scope of your linkages effort to the capacity that you have at hand, right? And it also helps you stage things, right? The nice thing about linkages is that this is a voluntary effort, right, across California. And so it gives you the luxury of being able to kind of design it at a scale that works for you, right? And it gives you time to sort of engage your stakeholders, your upper management, your leadership, those target populations that you might be serving. And by having a work plan, it really kind of helps you stay accountable to those stakeholders. And it really gives you as the steering group or the implementation team under the leadership of your linkages coordinators, kind of a guide, right, for either getting linkages going for the first time or adapting and renovating and retooling your program for this new prevention lens. And of course, just from a nuts and bolts standpoint, it helps you identify specific folks who are going to help you get this all done, right, and follow through on those responsibilities. And it can also be a really useful tool for not only tracking that progress, but just communicating your progress. I know in the past we've used the work plans in different counties to really kind of give status up to leadership and others about where are we with either expanding linkages to a new part of the county or launching a new target population that we want to reach more families with linkages. So the plan itself really helps you all clarify what you want to accomplish, how long it's going to take, who needs to be involved, and what specific actions will get you there. Okay. It really is important. I don't want any linkages coordinators out there sitting in a room by themselves and trying to type out a work plan, right? This is a collaborative process. It really takes a team to get the different perspectives in mind to know how to roll this out, how to design it, how to create the conditions for it to thrive, and then how to make sure it gets implemented. And so that's really what you want to keep in mind as you think about, definitely that's one of the reasons why we talk about having two linkages coordinators, one that can represent the kind of child welfare side of the house, the other that can represent the CalWORKs interests in this partnership. And so keeping that balanced co-leadership is really critical, because the partnership has to serve both agencies somewhat equally so that they see that it fits with their overall goals as an organization. And then kind of involving the right players from the start, right? Think about who is this going to most impact when we get this on the ground and get some of those people at the table. It's really important to have some sponsorship for this too, right? You want your leadership to be blessing this activity, right? And knowing that, yes, this is in the best interest of our county to move in this direction. It's aligned with our goals on both sides. It's what we want to be doing for kids and families. And so that way, this becomes a vehicle for you to regularly communicate between your co-leadership of your implementation team and your sponsors, right? So the types of folks you might want to consider bringing into your team are, people who are program experts, right? Who know the CalWORKs program, who know the child welfare program, especially at the areas of intersection that you want to try and target for the type of linkages program you want to do. If you want to do a secondary kind of strategy, get folks from the front end at managers or supervisors on the ER side, and those that are well-versed in family stabilization and home visiting and those kinds of things, homeless case management on the child welfare, on the CalWORKs side. And others that are helpful to have, data analysts, what Julie was talking about, what we talked about earlier about being able to figure out who are our linked clients. You know, do you need, are you doing a tertiary approach where you want to know who's in CalWorks and who's open to child welfare services at any given time? Even fiscal analysts are thinking about drawing down resources differently across the two programs. Even your union representatives, right? Everyone wants to know if anything new is going to create more work or more burden or any of those kinds of considerations. And so kind of bringing those folks in from the beginning. One of the things we found in the years that we have been doing linkages is even for those deepest coordination efforts at the tertiary end, for them in almost all cases, this made everyone's job easier, right? To be able to have this kind of strong partnership, because it's connecting the kind of resources you need to serve your families better in a meaningful and effective and efficient way. So those are the kinds of discussions that you might have at the very beginning of putting your plan together. But let's think too about just kind of how we've structured the work plan. Just like we had a tool for you for the assessment, we also have a template and a tool for you to create the plan itself, right? And you know, it's really important that you know, we wanted to make this goal driven, right? We wanted to make sure that you're setting that overarching goal for your linkages program at the top, and that you're really deliberately identifying the kind of topic areas you want to develop your plan elements around that fit for you, right? And so it's again, very much you build the work plan based on the type of linkages program you want to proceed with, and where you are with what's already in place versus what you need to pay some attention to and build out. So you're going to choose whatever work plan topic areas, whether that's we need a strategic direction for this, or we need to identify our target population, or we know all that and we just need to tweak our operations and do some different ways of creating our infrastructure of coordination, or we know all of that. And what we really need to do is retrain staff on what linkages is all about in our location. So whatever those elements are, then you can, again, be goal directed and create some implementation objectives for that. What do we want this to look like when we're done, right? And to be able to do a little visioning around that. You know, we want, for example, we just want to start linkages in this south end of our county first to sort of test it out with a targeted population, see how it goes, and then we'll expand it more broadly. So our implementation objective then is to, you know, target a certain population in a certain set of units or offices in part of the county, and then we'll evaluate that and see how it goes. Within that sort of vision of success, then you can outline what kind of tasks and steps and action steps and people and timelines will it take us to get there. And so that's where you can really craft, you know, how you want to phase this in, what meets your capacity needs, and who else do you need to engage to move this work forward. Okay, so you're really kind of custom building your own work plan through this. So there's really just 4 steps to using the work plan template itself. And I'm going to go ahead at this point. If you guys haven't seen the work plan template, I'm going to have Mia upload it into the chat, just like she did with the assessment tools. And you can download that right out of the chat, so you can be looking at the template at the same time that I'm kind of walking through the different sections of it. So again, it's about setting your overall linkages goal. It's about selecting your work plan topic areas, customizing your template to match those areas, and then building out your work plan details. Okay.
No.
So this part, when you open up that document, if you have, or if you haven't, it's fine. You can just follow along here, because I just took screenshots of each section of the template itself. This is just a little bit of identifying information on the top of your work plan, because ultimately, when you do complete your work plan, we would love for you to submit it to Dana. And the reason for that is because it really helps us in designing and supporting you in linkages over the next year, right? So that we can see, oh, what are the types of things different counties are working on? There's a lot of interest around this particular kind of linkages strategy. Let's create a shared learning webinar or something, or a special interest group around that with the counties that are all doing that same thing. And we can have you guys do some peer-to-peer learning and sharing of ideas amongst yourselves. It also gives us a point of contact, right? To go back to you, we're happy to support you with giving you any feedback on your work plan as well. Dana, are there other uses of submitting their work plans to you at CFPIC that you can see?
I think that's the main thing. And we really, as Leslie Ann mentioned earlier, that there's different flavors, if you will, of linkages. And you're going to be very, I think, prescribed. You're not going to be trying to do everything. So you're going to be deciding what's your goal. What do you want to do for this next year or this next 6 months? And so we really would like to develop some peer interest groups, clusters, so that we can group you together, the counties that are trying to work on the same type of strategy. Maybe it's a prevention strategy. So we can put all the counties that are really trying to work on that strategy together and pull together some webinars and some learning groups to get, peer learnings. Because one of the things I know as a former county person, we learn best from one another. We get ideas from one another and we overcome barriers listening to one another. So we really want to create some peer interest groups based on what you all are planning to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Dana. And I think the template's now in the chat, and somebody asked about sample work plans. We're actually going to look at one in a few minutes to see what it looks like all completed, right? So, but let's kind of walk through just these 4 steps quickly. And again, this statement of your linkages goal, that's kind of step 1 in terms of once you've interpreted the results of your self-assessment, you've maybe talked among yourselves as your implementation team, or at least between your linkages coordinators and your leadership. What do we ultimately want to try to accomplish with linkages over the next 12 months, right? And this is just as simple as we want to revamp and reinvigorate our existing linkages program with a prevention lens, right? That's even that simple of a statement will help guide you as to where are we trying to get to? Or maybe another county might be saying, we just want to get linkages off the ground. We want to start with a small pilot and we want to test it out in this area of the county and focus on early intervention opportunities. So this is a broad kind of statement that helps you capture, what level and what is our major vision and aim for where we want to end up with our linkages program by the end of this next year or 2.
And many counties, Leslie Ann, really may want to really look at how they can implement the mutual client AB 135 and implement AB 135.
That's a great one.
Because that I know that the FR program and AB 429 was a real impetus for counties to really try to implement that linkages strategy. So that may be something counties want to really enhance that part of their program by looking how they implement that
approach. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Dana. And so once you sort of set that big goal, right, for yourselves and agreed on that, this is those work plan topic areas I was talking about. And these are really just 12 kinds of topic areas that sort of derived from the areas of inquiry that you've asked yourself about in the self-assessment tool itself, right? So there's things about, just the program expansion or renewal or design in the first place. There's other topic areas around practice development, and there's a third set around sort of administration of the program, right? So things like setting a strategic direction for your effort, right? What are we trying to accomplish here overall? Having a vision and a mission and some guiding principles around it. Who's our target population? Do we specifically know what kinds of families we want to bring the linkages prevention initiative too, right? Is that FM and CalWORKs combined families? Is that what Dana said earlier, the AB 135 families, or is it something up on the front end more? Is it more of that secondary or even primary prevention kind of focus that you want to target? Who are our families that are most in need of that support? What's our infrastructure coordination, right? How are we going to connect the dots from identifying that family and knowing that once that's identified and we know we want to collaborate, that we have the, like we saw in the video, right, for Orange County, they had clearly set up a team, right, that helped to coordinate and make that connection between the two workers. And they also had a match list that was kind of behind the scenes, which we're going to talk about in a future webinar of how they do that and how other counties create that, where you can kind of scan your systems periodically with your data people and say, okay, here's the mutual clients we have right now, and they're assigned now to such and such a worker. Let's let that worker know that on your caseload of 20 cases or whatever, 5 of them are connected to CalWORKs right now. So you might want to think about the opportunity for collaboration there. So those are what we mean by the infrastructure of coordination. What are the mechanisms that you're going to do to make sure those linkages happen? And what about communication, right? I mean, even though we've got all the lists and we know who the families are and all that, if we don't talk to each other, right, on a regular basis, through our team structures, through whatever forums we have to collaborate nowadays, which are actually way more than we have had in the past, then it won't work very well, right? We have to be able to share our knowledge, share our resources, connect around the needs of that family. Same with the details of practice development, right? Things need to get clarified sometimes around how physically are we going to identify clients, right? How are we going to share information with confidentiality in place and expectations around how that information gets shared? How are we going to coordinate case plans if we're at the tertiary end of our strategy, if that's the way we want to do it? And again, there's other elements you want to plan around, like managing the whole project and training your staff and making sure you've got the resources in place to move this forward and make sure do you want to be evaluating this just yet? Or when would you want to sort of evaluate the impact of your linkages program? And of course, this is a Word document, so you can add any other topic area that's important for you all, right? And really make this your own, right? So these are just choices that you can make that fit for what you need to be planning around right now. And then this is the third step of the process, which is to really just create these little tables, right? We've got these little cut and paste tables that for each topic area that you've identified, you just write in the topic area, set your objective, right? What are we hoping to accomplish a year from now if we fully address this topic area? And by when, right? Are we going to give ourselves the next 3 months, for example, to, set our vision about this and create figure out our target population? And then what steps do we need to take to get there, right? Who needs to come together, by when, and what do they need to accomplish to get to that end, right? So again, you can make these as detailed or as high level as you want that works for your own project management purposes. And so it's always good to learn by example, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at a sample work plan for just a moment here. And I'm going to go ahead and escape out of here. And can you all see that? Okay, Dana?
Yep.
Okay, so this is and this is on the website too, which I'm going to go to in just a second, give you a little sneak peek. But we have this work plan that's been filled out by any county, California, right? Which is just a sample of what it might look like when you complete your work plan, right? So there's the identifying information filled out. I'm sure these folks have already sent it on to Dana, so she has it
Yep,
in
I
her
have it.
hand, right? They have a particular goal of to enhance service coordination between CalWORKS and child welfare in the West County office to help families achieve economic stability and ensure child safety, right? So they're going to target a certain part of their county. They've got, you know, they haven't quite figured out the specific target population yet, but they know they want to do a tertiary kind of linkages strategy, right? They've chosen several work plan topic areas to build out, right? Strategic direction and target population, client identification, their coordinated case planning protocols, confidentiality, and staff training, okay? So they've then got tables, right, for each one of those areas. And we'll just take a couple and look at them, for example, right? To get their strategic direction established, right? They are gonna, their implementation objective is that by the end of the day, right, the leadership actions, program operations, staff behavior, and client results in the West County office and throughout the agency are guided by a vision, mission, and guiding principles for the Linkages program. So that's what they're hoping to accomplish. And here's the steps they're going to take. They're going to put a little subcommittee together. They're going to build out some drafts. They're going to distribute it for review and integrate that into some of their training curriculum, and then get some posters and things designed so they can get them out and probably put it on their website and be able to really advertise this to others. So that's their little mini plan for strategic direction, right? And they've got some dates on that and some folks. They've got another little mini plan for their target population, right? They're going to look at some characteristics of from their data. They're going to identify, you know, who might be most in need of these kinds of services. They're going to look at any legal requirements and around opportunities for service coordination. And then they're going to initiate an initial target population in that West County office. And then they're going to create, based on that test, they're going to develop some eligibility criteria for that target population to help guide staff going forward, right? So these are all just kind of the program development steps that you would take when you're designing this kind of an initiative. So it goes on like this, and you'll have examples from each of these. And it goes through the coordinated case planning protocols. It even says, let's go visit one to two other counties who are already doing this kind of approach, see how they're doing it, and come back and have that guide our development of our own policies and procedures around it. And they're going to be looking at some training curriculum and adapting that as well. So with that, I want to go ahead for a moment here. And are there any other questions right now, Roxanne, from
no questions on the work plan. The only ask is that can we send out the blank templates with the PowerPoint so that they have those, so that includes the blank assessment tool. So that's the only ask so far.
Let me tell you the answer to that. Okay, so here I am, you guys. Everyone can see my screen, right? That I'm on the CFPIC website right now, right? www.cfpic.org, okay? And I've gone into Linkages here, and this is our brand spanking new Linkages website, right? With our homepage, which is where we've landed here. We can easily get to our toolkits either here or here. And I'm just going to quickly go to one. We have the web link at the end of the presentation for this. We want to encourage you to go visit this site. We've kind of rebuilt it with a new overview and tone of this prevention focus. We brought many of the materials from our old website forward, but not the ones that are no longer operating out there. But the idea of this, you guys, is that we wanted to give you a series of toolkits, right, to help you kind of design and build and implement your Linkages program. And then we also wanted to give you some examples of linkages in action like I've been talking about today, but to go look at counties' policies and procedures, to go look at their program descriptions, to go look at PowerPoints that have been done to describe, or flow charts that are out there that describe county's current linkages programs that are operating. Roxanne's done a tremendous amount of conversation with lots of counties out there. You've probably spoken to her on the phone to learn kind of what's new and innovative right now within your linkages operation. So we're trying to get as much as we can in here. But I'm going to go ahead. Go ahead, Dana.
Just want to say one thing. For those of you that were involved in our previous program, you know that we had a pretty robust toolkit. We're building this toolkit out, so we don't have all the material that we had in the other toolkit. We don't have, for example, fiscal, and we don't have, I think we don't have our training up. There are a lot of things that we're going to continue. Well, we might have some pieces in there, but we'll be building this out as we move this program forward, because we learn from you all, and we use a lot of the material that you've developed as we build the toolkit. So it's not quite as robust as it will be in the next year or two, but it's the beginning of our new toolkit with our new framework.
Exactly. And so to follow where you are and to answer the question that Roxanne just posed, where can I get this information? I just clicked on the assessment and planning toolkit, right? Which is what these 2 webinars have all been about, right? And so when you land on this page, you'll see, it starts off with conducting your assessment, right? And as you scroll down here, this is where you can download your readiness assessment. That's the word template that you just click on that and it downloads right into your desktop. And then this is your way to download the renovation assessment tool. So not only do we have it in the chat, you can download it from there today, but if you don't have a chance to do that, or you weren't in the webinar soon enough to see that link, you can go to the website and download it right there, okay? And then here we are at develop a work plan, right? And this is where you can download both the work plan template itself on the left here. That example that I just went through can be downloaded on the right, okay? So you can take a look at that, use it to help, educate your team and really build your work plan. The other thing that's available on here, in addition to the PowerPoint we've just gone through today, is we have something called a program design roadmap, which is really a way to take you through kind of the thinking steps about designing your linkages program, right? From start to finish, right? Some of the steps we've talked about today, but also more the nuts and bolts of how do we decide what flavor of linkages we want to put in place in our location. So everything from advice about establishing your implementation team to setting the stage for linkages becoming a way of doing business, to deciding which families will be served by linkages, to selecting the type of linkages program you might want to launch, ideas for clearing the way for collaboration to happen, right? What are some of the barriers you need to bust to make sure that happens smoothly and continues to happen? And establish guidance on establishing policies and procedures for linkages practice, as well as aligning other resources like training and communications and evaluation to support your linkages effort, okay? So I'm not going to take the time to go through all of this right now, but know that the basic structure of this is, some overview guidance, each of those steps. It just takes you through each one. And then we've got links to resources that are related to that step, either from other parts of the website or from other counties. And then also in many of these, we have little tips about experience tells us, right? That these are things to pay attention to. And again, like here, for example, I think this is our, setting the stage for linkages becoming a way of doing business, here's a bunch of, sample vision, mission, and guiding principles, right, from different counties that have set this up in the past. So you can just have some great, you've got some great guidance. You also have a way to, sort of walk you through an exercise that can get you your own vision, mission, and values. So there's just all kinds of things on here that we want to be able to connect you to. The other one I just want to mention quickly is, being able to select the type of linkages program that you want to pursue. This links you to the linkages in action page, where you can really start to see this continuum of approaches that linkages has taken, either newly through our work group statewide, or some of our secondary prevention county examples are here that you can take a look at, or our tertiary examples, of course, we have the most of, because that's what linkages has been doing for so many years. And you can click on those for policies and procedures, or program descriptions, or other resources that might be available to help spark your imagination about what might work in your county location. Okay, so questions, comments about the toolkit at this point? Anything in the chat, Roxanne? We want to.
No questions.
Okay.
Chat. So yeah, you must have got it all. Thanks, Leslie Ann.
Yeah, that was just sort of a quick rundown. We did want to, we will likely later on in the spring, after we've, fully done our testing of the toolkit and everything, do a webinar to give you a little bit deeper tour of the toolkit as time goes on. But are there any questions at all that come to mind for folks at this point?
No, but Gloria from LA said, Leslie Ann motivates me to revamp our work plan. So kudos.
Yay. Gloria made my day. I'm so happy to hear that. And I hope a few of the rest of you are excited about not only revamping, but maybe just beginning for the first time, right? And starting those conversations of where can we go from here, right? With this new prevention focus. I want to also just remind you guys of a few other tips to keep in mind about planning, right? Get the right people to the table, right? Don't try, just because you've maybe been named a linkages coordinator, don't try to take this all on yourself, right? Take your enthusiasm for today, talk it up to folks that you think, oh man, I really want so-and-so on our team. They'd be a great expert in this aspect of collaboration, or they know a whole bunch about the home visiting program in CalWorks or whatever. And let's sit down and really think about not only what we know to be true about our families and what the need is, but kind of marry that with your capacity right now, right? You can start slow with this. You can start out small. You can test things as you go. That's kind of the beauty of designing this and getting that feedback loop in place so that you can see, does this work the way we intended it to? And can we spread it, right? To more units, to more offices, to whatever, wherever our need is. And also as your planning team, right, be sure to delegate, right? And kind of stay out of the weeds if you can, right? Think about who's really best suited to complete these tasks. Who do we want to bring into the fold? Not only for their expertise, but this is a leadership building opportunity too, right? How many times do you get the opportunity to kind of build something from the ground up and really utilize who's making great observations about families and really thinking through what do folks need, right? Even if they're feeling a little, taxed by their current role, sometimes being on a project like this can really inspire people and kind of reinvigorate them that their work really matters, right? And it's really touching some of the larger goals and for the organization as a whole. And then, what do people need and what materials and background do they need? for them to be successful in their task, right? If you're asking them, for example, to tweak the curriculum on your revamped linkages program, make sure, they've got access to what you did before, or, they've got access to the folks that are going to be doing the work, and making sure that they feel empowered to complete that task, right? And what support can the team as a whole offer to any of those individuals that are carrying out different aspects of your plan? And then don't forget about us too, right? If you're getting stuck on the development of your plan itself, reach out to Dana, or reach out to me, or reach out to Roxanne, and we're happy to come in and, maybe, hover in on a Zoom meeting or something, and help you guys think through any of the obstacles that you might be facing in getting this going in your location. So you guys need to kind of keep an elevated view, right? Get up at the 10,000 foot level and think about how can we make this work and get some traction with it. So don't bite off more than you can chew, right? And try to scale it to a level that really matches your capacity. And consider, right, the sequencing of things, the dependency between tasks, right? Don't try to create your curriculum before you've got your program fully designed, right? Make sure that everybody knows how it works before you go and try and teach people how it works, right? And make your plan relevant, right, to some other external driver, right? So that you're not over in the corner here just toiling away on linkages. Link it to that FFPSA prevention plan in some way, right? Make sure that it's got a bigger purpose than just you guys creating this little pilot, but it's feeding your overall prevention effort in the county, or it's helping you guys reach your your SIP goals, or your welfare to work overarching goals on the CalWorks side. So it's got some purpose to it, right? And try to stay product driven, right? That, events and policies and protocols and tangible deliverables embedded into your plan or curriculum or whatever it is going to help get it done for you, right? It's going to help anchor it. And it's also going to get it out of the sort of oral history that sometimes linkages can live with the people that have been involved in it at the time. Once you get it documented in your policies and procedures, and in your desk guides, and in your other materials in the county, then it's got the momentum to live on, right? To the inevitable staff turnover that will continue to happen in our work environments. And do remember to use the work plan as a communication tool, right? It's a great way to show people your progress, to check in on your accomplishments, to celebrate what you've accomplished so far, and kind of keep people motivated.
And, I just want to add to what you've said. You've said it in many ways, but I kind of want to stress this again, because I really know how it is in those counties, is that you really need to make sure that your leadership sees how it aligns with the priorities that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So your priorities may be something around, for the child welfare, it may be around reunification, or it may be around, whatever those priorities that your leadership has. It's really important for them to see how linkages aligns with those priorities, because I think it does in most cases, because of just my own experience in the county and knowing the kind of work and the kind of outcomes that you can have with this program. It does align with priorities, but sometimes folks can't see that. So as Leslie Ann says, make sure that you do use the work plan as a communication tool, that people do know, that your leadership does know how this relates to the priorities of the department. I think it's really important.
Right. Excellent. So any questions, Roxanne, comments?
Just one kind of basic question about the website, is there any eligibility requirements to accessing it, or any restrictions?
To the website? No. None at all.
Oh, no, it's totally open. Yeah, your grandmother could access the website if she wanted to.
No, we want you to use it and give us feedback on it, of course. You know,
Mhm.
as you use it, things that you think we should add to it or any issues that you have with it. Because it is a new website for us and we're building it and.
Or glitches. Please
yeah.
tell us about glitches
If any
too. We can fix that with our stellar support person, Mia, behind the scenes. Yes. So with that, if there are no other comments or questions, I'm going to turn it over to Dana to just talk a little bit about kind of what's coming up next.
Well, first of all, you know, please reach out to me if you have any questions or you have supports needs. Reach out to me first. I will be assigning, you know, we'll between myself and Leslie Ann and Roxanne, we'll be deciding how we assign ourselves to support you. So would really appreciate you reaching out to me if you have any questions or you have supports needs. As Leslie Ann said, is if you're struggling with developing your work plan or your implementation team and you'd like one of us, you know, to perhaps, as she said, hover on the Zoom to sort of support you, let us know that. We'll do what we can in terms of our time, but we really want to help you get started. We have a next webinar because one of the things that we do know that client identification is a really big issue, especially for counties that are working on tertiary. So we're going to be doing a webinar on that in late May or June. We want you to visit the Linkages website, of course, the one that we just showed you at cfpic.org. And if you have missed the assessment webinars, we put them in the email earlier, in the chat earlier, but here they're in the chat again, in PowerPoint. And we'll be sending this PowerPoint out to you right after this, right after we complete this webinar. So that's where we're at, and we'll be, we're here to support you in your work. As I said, reach out to us if you have any questions. You've been putting your coordinators' names in the chat. That's great. If you didn't, because you don't know who they are yet, send them to me because we'll be developing a directory, and that's how we'll be mainly getting our information out is through the coordinators and supporting you through the coordinators to support you. So if you have any other questions or anything, please feel free to, put them in the chat now or send them to me at a later date. And I'll put my email in the chat again. And thank you all for attending and for your continued interest in creating a linkages program.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.